One of the benefits of producing this podcast is to be able to meet people who have had a transformational influence on my career. One of those people, David Marquet, wrote a book that allowed me to take a really close look at the improvement work that my team and I were doing and to improve the way that we lead. David is our guest today. David is a student of leadership and organizational design, a former nuclear submarine commander, and named one of the top 100 leadership speakers by Inc. magazine. David is the author of the Amazon #1 bestseller Turn the Ship Around and the Turn the Ship Around workbook. David's latest book, Leadership as Language, is a Wall Street Journal bestseller. David imagines a workplace where everyone engages and contributes their full intellectual capacity, a place where people are healthier and happier because they have more control over their workplace where everyone is a leader. Today's guest, David Marquet. Okay, everyone. I am super excited about this podcast guest. Today, we're joined by David Marquet. He is the author of Turn the Ship Around, naval submarine commander from the USS Santa Fe. They were ranked last in retention operational standing, but he applied what he's going to share today to the Santa Fe and got great results. I told David before we got on, I told him how excited I was to be doing this interview. A few years ago, somebody gave me the book, Turn the Ship Around, and I read it. I soaked it all in, and then I turned around and went to my team and says, we're doing everything wrong. we need to start over, right? But the concepts in it, like pushing authority to where information is, speaking with clear intent, words matter, language, all of it it transformed my work and my joy at work. And I hope it had the same impact for the others that were around me. But David, I touched a little bit about my experiences, but can you tell the podcast listeners a little bit about yourself and how leadership and continuous improvement is a part of your life?
Yeah, of course. So my backstory is I was an expert in telling people what to do. And the default structure, which I didn't even think about because it was just like the air you breathe, but the default structure of the organizations that I was in as I rose up through the ranks in the Navy was leaders and followers follow the leaders. And the leaders make decisions, and the role of leaders to make decisions to do the thinking part of the job, and the role of the followers is to follow the decisions and do the doing part of the job. So in essence, the followers are the extension, the mechanical extension of the brain of the thinker. And it's encoded, it's literally encoded in the leadership text, but it's deeply encoded in our cultural norms and in the language we use. We talk about leaders and followers, management and workers, and management and union, white collar, blue collar. We wear different uniforms. Like, why do we wear different clothes at the same company? And it's because we're dividing the world into these two categories. So I didn't question any of that. I was sometimes unhappy because I always felt like, oh, I'm thinking more than you guys aren't really getting much of my thinking. You're just getting my doing. But okay, I can play that game. And then I had this experience where I was trained for one submarine. I was assigned as the captain, and I was trained for one ship, and I ended up on the Santa Fe because that captain quit. And the Santa Fe was the worst performing, had the worst morale. It was sort of the broken shower shoes submarine of the Navy. But none of that bothered me. I dealt with that before. I'd always been able to kind of smart my way out of it, make great decisions, and like coerce the team to do better. The problem with Santa Fe was a different kind of ship I'd ever stepped on before. And the 12 months of training I'd done for the ship I was supposed to go to was largely irrelevant. So in this old model, in the traditional model, the leader needs to know the answers, and the person who knows the answers earns the right to be the leader, not the person who knows how to get the team thinking or to express what they believe. But that hit me square in the face when I gave an order that didn't make any sense, and the officer ordered it anyway, knowing it didn't make sense. It was a very simple thing, basically say, hey, shift into second gear on this motor, and it only had one gear. But he ordered it anyway, and like the sailor just looked at us like we're both stupid, and which we were, but in two different ways. And when I looked at him and I asked him, well, hey, why did you order it? He said, because you told me to, which we all have been there. Now, some people will say, oh, well, that's the military. You do what you're told. Yeah. And in the civilian world, too, let's be honest. Volkswagen, Wells Fargo, Boeing, 737. I can go on and on and on. And plus, every organization I've ever been visited in the civilian world. This is the cultural norm. Oh, but we tell people to speak up. We tell them if it doesn't make sense that they're gonna like speak up and tell me like the CEO is wrong. Yeah, and we did that too, and we all know that that's really just to allow the CEO later to say, "Well, I ordered you to speak. You had your chance." The probability of people speaking up in environments like that, laid on top of the cultural of the language that we use, which is structured actually to design consensus, not dissent. The way we run the meeting is structurally designed to punish dissent. But we get to claim, oh, I asked, it's all nonsense. And it hit, but I was deeply invested in it. I thought, oh yeah, of course, that's what it is. Hit me in the head like a 2x4. And I got my team together, and my instinct was to say, oh, well, be empowered, speak up, like the same nonsense I'd heard. You need to do, you're all screwed up. I'm fine, but you're all screwed up. And one of the reasons why work is so stressful is because there's a mismatch between what we're trying to control and what we actually can control. You can control yourself. That's hard. So we substitute an attempt to control other people. Like I can't control the way I ask a question. I can't shift from saying, are you sure, to, well, how sure are you? Or when you tell me something that sounds wrong to me, instead of saying, well, why would you want to do that? Or some idiotic question like, well, have you thought about safety? Oh my God, I totally forgot safety. I'm so glad you mentioned it.
Thanks for bringing that up. Right?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I just had my head so far on my ass, I just didn't even think of safety. Like, so when does that ever happen? Zero. So the problem is the way you're asking the question is not, it's basically sending a signal. I really don't want to hear this. You're outlying and this, we call them outlying and dissenting opinions. These are the opinions that are different than the group, or they're in some way. And so my thing was, the problem wasn't I gave a bad order. The problem was I was the one giving orders. It was structurally a fragile system, which it is. And so I made a deal where I would never give an order. So you can imagine watching a movie about any war movie or any business movie where the CEO never gives an order, never tells people what to do, or the captain of the ship never tells people what to do, or whoever the quote leader is, never tells people what to do. Just try and imagine what that would be like. But that's what we achieved. I told people how to do things, in the sense of, I said, this is how we were going to run meetings. This is how we were going to talk to each other. These are the words we're going to use. These are the words we're not going to use. So I played in that space, and I played hard in that space. And I gave up that, but controlling the process allowed me to give up inspecting everything that comes out. So think about it. I'm running a factory, so lean. So let's say we're doing a manufacturing process. If I don't control the process, like the paint temperatures and baking temperatures and the nozzle sizes and the raw material and all that, if I don't control that, then I have to put an inspector at the end of the process to say, oh, good car, bad, reject, good, and this is what we basically do with decision making. because people don't understand how to, or it's just too hard to control, to execute control over the process. The second thing is we actually like it. It feeds our egos when people are lined up outside our door all the time. We complain about, oh, I'm so busy, everyone needs me, but we really secretly like it. Why? Otherwise, why would we be doing it?
Yeah.
And so because I got to pass judgment on all these decisions. And it's just a choke point. And so I think about intent-based leadership. It's basically lean for decision making in my mind. And the biggest waste in decision making is there are two. Number one is that there's a delay before there's an awareness to make a decision. There's a long organizational latency. So a person, the information is at the periphery. I'm going on this long diatribe, dude. You started. So the information lives at the periphery of the organization. The authority rests in the middle of the organization. So there's going to be awareness at the periphery that a decision needs to be made, and it has to trickle up to the center. And the other thing is the fundamental structure of decisions is a permission-based approach, which means, well, we all know what it means. It means I have to get permission, which means that the default is no. If I send you an email and say, hey, Chris, I'm your marketing person. Say, hey, Chris, I want to spend $100 a day on LinkedIn advertising starting next Sunday. And you just don't respond for whatever reason. You're on a plane to China. And what happens?
Nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. And then so executives are frenetically checking their phone because they know their team's waiting on them. Now, imagine this. Your marketing person says, hey, Chris, here's what I'm seeing. We got a lot. I think the people that we're trying to reach live on LinkedIn. That's their place. And so I'd like to run an experiment for 2 weeks and spend $100 a day. And here's what I'm going to do, blah, blah, blah. I think it's aligned to our message, blah, blah, blah. I intend to start next Sunday. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I intend to start next Sunday. Now you don't answer. Guess what happens on Sunday?
Action.
Exactly. And you know what? That person never can say, oh, I thought it was stupid, but Chris made me do it anyway.
Yeah. Because it's their idea.
Yeah. It's their idea. Yeah. And even if you go to the person and say, well, hey, what do you think about doing advertising on LinkedIn? They're like, best idea I ever heard since sliced bread. Right? No, they may think it's a dumb idea. You have no idea.
Yeah.
So anyway, the long story short was we had an amazing time. The team became super jazzed, super engaged, super thinking. Everyone was thinking. Everyone was doing, everyone was thinking. We set records for 100% of the sailors stayed in. Can't, that's awesome. A record because you can't get higher than
on a submarine, right?
Yeah, on a submarine. Yeah, and it's hard. Like we take them away from their families for 6 months. I mean, it's hard work. And that's a great statistic. But think about it. People now, before it was 10%. 1 in 10 stayed in. So think about how dismal it has to be to change that. And this is one of the big things that we see. We have a big company in the U.S. It's a food processor. So they got over 100,000 people, and they're changing the numbers on retention and turnover. But the real story is like, how do those people see their lives? They saved $100 million last year on turnover costs, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. When people feel like they have control over their life, they're healthier. They live longer. They drink less, and their livers are healthier, and on and on and on and on and on and on. So it's just the tip of the iceberg.
I
So
think,
anyway, that's yeah, okay. Over to you. You can
no,
talk for the next 15
no,
minutes.
no, people are watching to hear you speak, not me. I just set the questions up or whatnot,
No, I don't know.
but
I just got on a roll, man. Sorry about that.
no, I know. But the passion shows through, right? It shows through in the work. It shows through in the way that you deliver it. And I, it's one of the things in the book that stands out, and turn the ship around is, yes, you got all of these accolades, you got all of these awards, all the metrics trended in the positive way, but the win was the changing of the culture that the metrics were an outcome of, not, hey, I mean, you didn't sit in the room and said, hey guys, we're gonna increase retention. Retention was a byproduct of shifting authority to where information is, prioritizing the person as a thinker and not as a doer, and kind of flipping that dynamic. Everyone talks about where you have a pyramid, right? And traditional pyramid is CEO or captain at the top, and then it breaks down. And what you really did is you flipped it up underneath. So what do you need from me, right? I mean, you're the expert. You know what to do. Tell me what you need to be effective. And I think that that what people miss is you did this in a organization with deep, like, abiding traditions and cultures.
Right.
I mean, I don't think people. I mean, people understand. There's military traditions or whatnot. No military organization has traditions deeper than the Navy, and then the submarine fleet is essentially a Navy within inside of a Navy.
Yeah.
It's your own community, right? And you were able to accomplish that from just changing the way that you think and the way that you talk, right?
Changing the way that we talked came before changing the way that we think. And one of the things that I learned was that the reason why all these, quote, change management programs that I've been subjected to didn't really work is because they didn't treat people like humans. I don't know what they treated us like, but it was basically, oh, I'm going to give you an idea, and then I'm going to go back to wherever I came from, and then somehow you're going to implement this idea. Like, oh, take care of your people. Oh my gosh, thank God you reminded me about that. But no one knows what does that mean? Empower your people. Well, what does that sound like? Like, if I were to tape 2 meetings, what does a meeting where I've empowered my people sound like? And what is a meeting? So the real way you should do it is say, we want a culture where it feels safe to speak up, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you say is, okay, first of all, what would that sound like? And then the second question is, okay, so if I can only control myself, what do I need to do so that the meeting sounds as close as possible to that meeting? You don't ever need to you don't even need to tell them, I'm trying to make it safe for you. Just do it. Don't waste people's time by saying, oh, well, my job is I'm going to make it safe. Like, what a waste of time. Just do it, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's people, there are people in business and in life that try to change you to serve them, when in reality, what you need to do is change yourself in order to serve the others. And that's how you achieve the means. That's the goal. It's when people show up at work and they feel like that their leader has a high degree of compassion for them, like understands them, like knows them, but then at the same time has a very high expectation from them. When those two things match and you're in that upper quadrant, you can achieve the things that you guys achieved. But when someone doesn't think that you care, it just becomes obnoxious. It doesn't. Kim Scott talks about it in her book Radical Candor, right? It's that same concept there. But we're talking about a success in here, but in the book you also talk about some times when this thinking and you're developing it didn't work so well. It was a setback. And can you share with the listeners of the podcast kind of like how you identified that, internalized it, and then made an adjustment for how you led in the future?
Yeah. So let me just talk about the structure a little bit. And so if you're watching this on video, you'll see, or if you're watching this on audio, what I'm doing is I'm bringing up a thing called the ladder of leadership, which is the 7 tiers of language that we would use to invite people to a higher level of empowerment. So we start with, okay, telling people what to do or being told what to do, asking to be told what to do. And then the next step is description. What do you see? Then the next step is thinking. What do you think? Or how do we get here? Or what's the root cause? And then the next 3 steps are variations of action. So it's description, assessment, action. And the action can be, I'd like permission to do something. Here's what I intend to do, or I already did it. So my idea, since I was not going to give any orders, was I was leaning back. I needed the team to lean into me. It didn't happen overnight, but I wanted it to. Because that's a little too scary for me and too scary for them. But very quickly I would say, okay, well, tell me more. Hey, Kat, here's the situation. Okay, tell me more. All right, what do you think? All right, what would you do if you had to make this decision? What would you do if you were me? You know, things like that. So it was just boom, boom, boom up this ladder. Now I got a little too comfortable because this worked great. And in 3 months, we were like, amazing things were happening. But I got a little too comfortable with the whole thing because we had untapped knowledge in the organization. In other words, people were making decisions way below what they were capable of. And so all I did for those first couple months was just allow them to make decisions up to the point where they were capable. But then I went too far. And the level of knowledge, we call it the technical competence and organizational clarity, which is the how to do stuff, and then why are we doing it? Why am I loading torpedo? Why am I submerging the submarine here? Why am I launching a new product? Why am I doing the advertising campaign on LinkedIn? I ran out of headroom, and I really didn't understand that those two, the importance of those 2 structural pillars. And so I was giving more and more control, and I went too far, and we made a pretty bad mistake we were going to set up to load torpedoes, and we dropped a heavy piece of equipment because we didn't have a hydraulic system lined up right. And I just given control to people to make decisions that they were just not technically qualified to make. Now, there's no formal, like a lot of things we have formal qualifications for, but 99% of decisions that happen in the organization, they're kind of in these gray spaces. And anyway, so people are making these decisions, and it really set us back. My instinct was, okay, now I understand why we go back and we have this disempowering structure that we have. It's safer. But the team talked me out of that because we had seen such tremendous results and said, the problem is that we just got ahead of our headlights, and you're giving us more authority and control than is really warranted. And now what we need to do is catch up with our technical competence and catch up with our organizational clarity, our purpose, our why, and then we'll be back on track. And I think that was correct. And so we did that, and it worked out. But I think initially we had a lot of headroom. I think most organizations, we poll organizations and we ask them, so I have this control, competence, clarity. Mm-hmm. And then we ask them, hey, where do you think you are on this? And most, or we might say, where do you think your teammates are, or where do you think the organization is? But say variations on that question. And over 2/3 of the people put their organization down here. So in other words, people have more competence and clarity than they're given the authority, controls the authority to make decisions. They're given decision-making authority for. So you have headroom. But the beauty of intent is you still get to veto it. So it's like imaginary. It's a win-win because they feel they have ownership and they initiate. They're the source of, they're the spark, they're the initiation of the action. And you're not the choke point, but you can stop things if you want. And you get to ask questions. So that's what we thought was magic, because you get high communication and high ownership. And with clarity, you get high alignment and high distribution of decision-making, which most people think both of those pairs are intention.
Well, and the other side of that, or a side effect of that, is now where I operate in an environment, I become self-aware of where my technical competence is limited, and it forces me to learn more, because I feel like I owe it to the organization because I've been empowered this way. There's a knock-on effect that's kind of an invisible force that compels people to perform, to push themselves to perform at a higher level.
Exactly. And you want the team, the individuals on the team need to feel responsible for their own levels of technical competence. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And this is like, it's exactly what you said. You said, the people say, oh, the sky's the limit. And so now they want to know, and they want to learn more. So the sailors in their free time put their Xboxes away and started reading tech manuals. And then the other consequence of that was in the Navy, in the U.S. military, one of the things that's very important to get promoted is the technical exam that they give all the enlisted people. And once my guys saw the connection between their technical competence and how much authority they would have, which was largely informal, but then was subsequently recognized, and then they would get either promoted or they get a pay raise.
Pay grade, yeah.
Yeah, but what happened is they ended up getting promoted at much higher percentages than the whole rest of the submarine force, because they felt like they had agency. The whole thing was about giving people a sense that you have control over your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so they felt like, oh, I have control over whether I get promoted or not. If I study and know the test, I'll get promoted. I tell you, I've been on and all these ships, and people say, oh, well, that's just, I didn't get the score, blah, blah, blah. It's just the way it is. There's this sort of sense of,
my chief hates me.
Yeah, the fates decided that I wasn't, like, no, like so two things. One, they actually were more knowledgeable because they wanted to be, because there was this incentive. They could have more control over their life, which everyone wants. And two is they saw the connection between that. And so we had amazing promotion rates, huge promotion rates, so then now everyone wants to come to Santa Fe, because that's where you're going to control over life. You're going to have more fun. You're going to work less. The other ships couldn't understand. We would go into maintenance period. We used to work till 8, 9 o'clock at night. We'd be going home at 3, 4 o'clock. We'd be doing more than everybody else. They didn't understand. But the reason was because the reason work takes so long isn't because the work takes so long. It's because the decisions around the work take so long.
Everybody knows what to do, right?
It's the permission to get started. It's the, okay, where are we going to stop? It's the checkpoints. It's, okay, I hand over from the mechanical guys to the electrical guys. Like, there's like a 6-hour gap there. Why? Because we didn't do the thinking part of our jobs.
We were waiting for permission, right?
Or yeah, I was waiting for permission. I need to get a sign off, blah, blah, blah. And so again, this is the leaning. Like we have a construction company as a client, and literally, like, the way they thought, they wouldn't have never admit this, but the way they behaved was, we're going to take all this time to make all these decisions, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm going to beat on the guy with a nail gun to make sure he does 110 nails a minute rather than 100 nails a minute. Like, that's not going to make a difference. How about the 4 days it took to get started?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could go
So,
on and on.
well, no, but I mean, so that kind of brings me into the next question here is, you've taken what you learned and experienced and honed in the Navy, and now you've brought it to the Intent-Based Leadership Institute, and you're working with clients to help them see the power of what this system is. But there's got to be a pet peeve. There's got to be that one thing that when you see it, everyone around you says, "Oh man, David's going to see that, and he's going to say the same thing he says every time." What's that pet peeve?
Well, first of all, I need to tweak what you said a little bit.
Okay.
We don't help them see it. Most of our clients have some vision, or they believe in it. They don't hire us so we can convince them it's going to work. They already believe that getting more thinking out of their team will result in better lives for their people and than themselves and the organization. They already believe that. So we're not convincing anybody. All we do is give them the words to say. So one of the things that really irritates me is when people say, "Oh, we're already doing this," or someone in the organization will say that. And it irritates me on a couple of levels. Number one is because every place where you think you quote know it, or you're already doing it, you've just shut the door on learning. So I say, okay, well, that person's never going to learn. They're not open to learning. They already think they're doing it all right or perfect or whatever they want. And intent-based leadership isn't the solution to everything, every time. We know it's very powerful and it makes the lives of people better, but I don't want to pretend like it's like always the thing. It's just the thing that we do. So, so the fact is, okay, when I hear that, what I hear is, okay, there's no more learning going to happen over there, so we don't waste any time with that person. It's like, I will convince me. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I think I read recently. I'm trying to figure. It may have been Mark Graben, but he goes, "Pet peeve is when people demand data that improvement will make them better." And the flip side of this, well, what data were you looking at when you decided to be mediocre? I mean, or what did you ask for a confirmation of data when you chose that path? And the answer is no. But it's it's the same thing. Well, we already done that, or we've done that. We've tried it. It didn't work.
Well, we ask questions like that. We'll say, so we're ready to move up to the third floor, right? Not, so the plan has us going to the third floor today. Who sees issues with it? Or what issues do we have with that? Or what problems could that bring? In other words, that agreement structure, right? Does that make sense? We good here? Which comes flipping off our tongues without even thinking about it. Like when people say right to me, I go, no, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, what? Like, well, you asked me a question. I did? Well, it wasn't really like, right? No. Anyway.
It wasn't a clear question, right?
Yeah. So I have social anxiety. I have social disorders. And one of them is I take people, what they say, I take it kind of literally. Anyway, I got off track.
No,
so,
but when you
so you got to ask,
yeah,
you got to ask a question that invites a disconfirming. You need to ask the question that invites someone to tell you how screwed up you are. That's what the question you want to ask.
Yeah. What am I missing here? Or what am I
missing? Perfect. What am I not seeing? What do you know that I don't know? Yeah. How could this go wrong? What are the top 3 reasons why we'll be talking about this in a month as a big disaster? Blah, blah, blah.
So, well, that matters. So you've had a brilliant career in the military. Now you're in your second career here. I know that you're a reflective thinker, just in the way that if you look in your reading and then follow the leadership nudge and you talk about the importance of reflection. What do you consider the most important thing that you've learned in your career so far?
I I think we're held back by fear a lot. And I'll give you an example. Well, first of all, like not getting a typical, like a guy could go work for a nuclear power plant or whatever and make a whole bunch of money. And like, so writing a book for a guy who's an engineer and a math geek and a numbers person, like that was kind of scary. I go up to give a speech and I call it tens and ones. It's better to get tens and ones than a bunch of nines. If you try and make everybody happy, what you're going to get is a bunch of nines. And everyone's going to walk away, and 2 weeks later, they're going to be like, huh, what? Oh, yeah, I sort of remember that guy. You do tens and ones. People may say they don't like like I go to Europe. I don't hide the fact that I signed up in the Navy because I felt strongly about the Constitution of the United States. When I go to Europe, I don't hide that. Some people might not like it. I don't care. Go listen to a different speaker. I still have a message that I think can help you, but it doesn't matter to me. I have to be the best me I can be. It was a part of me. And it drove early decisions in my life. So some people, so I get the scores, 10, 1. And when I first got a 1, I was devastated. The first person who wrote a 1-star review on my book was devastated. But if you're going to be out there in the arena, you're going to get ones, and it's going to hurt, and then it's going to not hurt.
Well, I mean,
so that's the fear thing. So don't be controlled by your fear. It's easy to say, but it's hard to do.
That's true. But I think that taking that a step further, it's there's ones that you need to ignore, and then there's ones that you need to listen to that are trying, but you are what you are. You're not going to change. You don't need to spend time trying to convert ones to tens or ones to fives, right? It's the message is the message.
Yeah. I mean, the person who you're going to learn from is going to give you like an 8 or a 7. Okay. And because they're on your side, but you also get better at asking feedback. You don't say, oh, how was that? That's like good, great, wonderful. Like that, so now I ask questions like, what should I have spent less time on? What should I have spent more time on? Tell me back what you heard. What do you think the key message was? How many messages were there? How many, if you were to summarize in one sentence what you think my keynote was about, what would you say? So I have to test my hypothesis, because in my head it's super clear, but then when I listen to this tape, it's like, my God.
Yeah, I need to improve that, right? Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, no. So, as a podcast host, I can tell you the first time that you hear your own voice on something recorded, right. Like, do I sound like that?
I sound like that.
Yeah, do I say that much in life?
Yeah,
I mean, see, I just did it right there.
There you go.
Yeah. See, did it again.
Replace. So you can't tell yourself not to say What you have to do is say replace with something. So replace with silence or something like that.
Or breath, right?
Or breath, yeah.
What piece of advice would you give to someone who is starting out in their career, right? And like that, like you talked about asking killer questions, but what would the right piece of advice be for the person starting out right now that is listening to this and says, I want to lead like that, or I want to learn, I want to work in an environment like that?
You're not leading. You're leading yourself. If you start going up to the boss and saying, "Oh, I know more than you," and like you didn't earn the right to say that, it's not going to work out well for you. Leaders, their job is to raise the roof in control, keep ratcheting up the control they're giving the team, so the team will be motivated to increase their competence and will do that. If you're at the other end of the hierarchy, your job is to learn your skills and expose them, not only the skills, but what's going on in your head. We call it expose your thinking. So you go to your boss repeatedly and say, I got this decision. I don't need you to solve it for me, but just let me talk about how I'm thinking it through. Now, I haven't thought about this beforehand, so you're not just babbling. And then, so I think the following three are the criteria I'm weighing, and I think this one is really a lot more important. And so that's kind of how we're processing it. How would you improve my thinking? And do that. So now your boss is getting a sense of A, you're trying to get better, and B, kind of how you think through problems. That's going to make it safe for your boss to give you more authority. If you do what I spent a lot of time doing, which was, I don't want to go, and because if I talk to my boss, I might realize I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And or number two, they're going to start that'll just give them more ammunition to micromanage me. So I would be opaque. And they say, well, why aren't you trusting me with more decisions? They even voice it this way. It's because I have no idea how you think. So why would I give you decision-making authority? Because I earned the skepticism that I invited on myself. So I would be super transparent. I would have no ego investment in the skills you have today. You don't know anything. You can't do anything. Doesn't matter. You can learn both. So even if you think you know something, just think that you don't. You'd be much better off.
Make better decisions, or you're open to better decisions from someone else, because someone may have a better way, right?
Well, that too, but that's everyone. Yeah, the leaders too, but.
Absolutely. If someone wants to learn more about the Intent-Based Leadership Institute or the work that you do, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, go to intentbasedleadership.com, go to the Intent-Based Leadership Institute LinkedIn page. And the most fun thing to do is go on LinkedIn. I got LinkedIn on the head. Go on YouTube and type in Leadership Nudges. We have a YouTube channel where I do these little snippets, a lot of stuff that you've been hearing about today. And we have over 300 of them. Been doing one a week for 6 years now, and they're all on the YouTube channel. So that's me. They come every week. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I try and keep them really short, typically 90 seconds. Although every once in a while there's a longer one.
Well, and I'll include a link to that in the show notes page for this episode. David, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your influence on my life and my career. And I appreciate you sharing your time and thoughts with the podcast audience.
My pleasure. Cheers.
I want to thank David for being a guest on the podcast today. Be sure to go to the show notes page at leanleadershippodcast.com and check out the links to connect with David and to learn more about the Intent-Based Leadership International. You definitely want to check out his Leadership Nudges channel on YouTube as well. As always, I welcome your feedback on how to improve the podcast. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and leave a rating on the podcast in whatever channel you listen to us on. Thank you for listening, and until next time, seek progress over perfection.